So 2 of those top 4 defects of character were I had unrealistic expectations and I had an inability to let things go. I would hold on to shit forever. So I'd have these unrealistic expectations of people, and then I'd make people pay for not living up to my unrealistic expectations. And when I say make people pay, I mean mostly in my mind, but I'd also punish them by being a dick to them and thinking what assholes they were. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting, LLC, where I coach people on how to develop healthy boundaries. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-Step Recovery Fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-Step Fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-Step Recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. This is episode 153. Learning to have realistic expectations and becoming able to let things go. When I did the 12 steps in my second program, which was the first time I did them with a sponsor, after I determined my defects of character in steps 4 and 5, one of the things she had me do was to pick out 4 of my top defects and do some really deep work on each of those for steps 6 and 7. If you're not familiar with the steps, step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5 is admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So we basically determine what our defects of character are in step 4, and then we admit them out loud in step 5. And then step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. And 7 is humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. And in step 6, that sponsor had me really define very specifically what it would look like to be, quote, willing to have these defects of character removed. In other words, what would my behavior be if these really insidious defects of character were removed in these same kinds of situations where they would crop up? So 2 of those top 4 defects of character were 1, I had unrealistic expectations, basically of myself, other people, and the world. And 2, I had an inability to let things go. I would hold on to shit forever. And one thing I'd especially hold on to was my unrealistic expectations. So there was a connection between those 2. So I'd have these unrealistic expectations of people, and then I'd make people pay for not living up to my unrealistic expectations. And when I say make people pay, I mean mostly in my mind, but I'd also punish them by being a dick to them for not living up to my unrealistic expectations and thinking what assholes they were. So here's what's interesting. I'm in the process right now of going through the steps again in one of my fellowships in a step study. And I just did steps 6 and 7 this past week. And when I went back through and looked at the big, huge list of defects of character that cropped up the first time I did the steps, I looked them over and I thought, I really have a handle on most of those. I feel like they've pretty much been removed, especially for these 2. Occasionally I'll have an unrealistic expectation, but I feel like I can unhook from those expectations after the fact, after I realize, hey, this is about me having unrealistic expectations. And I've really learned how to be accepting of things. I just don't feel like it's an issue for me to not be able to let things go. So when I did steps 6 and 7 this time, I had 3 other defects that still feel like they're an issue from time to time. And they sort of felt like a cluster of related defects. And they are being judgmental, being self-centered, and having a superior attitude. In other words, thinking I'm right, my way is the correct way, etc. And so those were the only ones I really felt like I needed to do a thorough job in humbly asking God to remove them. Well, apparently God had another plan for me this weekend. Here's the story. I had an arrangement this weekend to do business with a colleague to coordinate a small event for me and my sweetheart to celebrate our birthdays. And it was incredibly disappointing. The entire process of working with this person was difficult from the get-go. And when the package arrived with all of the things to create the event, it was over 2 hours late. I gave them a window of time between 1 and 6 p.m. to deliver it, and it arrived at 8 p.m. I was upset, and my sweetheart said, well, I don't know if you should really be surprised because the entire process of working with her on this project has been difficult. And I was like, excellent point. He reminded me that I was having an unrealistic expectation. This person showed me all along who they were and how they did business. I should have seen that I couldn't necessarily count on them to follow through. Now, the reason I kept working on this project with this person and decided not to go with another vendor is because I knew them and I networked them. Now, if this was anybody else, say somebody that I walked into a store or I found on the internet, I never would have pursued a working relationship. I would have let them go weeks ago. So me staying with them had to do with my relationship with the person, which blinded me to this unrealistic expectation that the thing would arrive on time and also that everything that I ordered would be included. So that was unrealistic. On top of that, I have been unable to let it go. I literally just typed out an email to this person, which I may or may not send, to get that shit out of my system. I also journaled about it this morning, and I've had to tell myself probably 10 times today, stop writing the letter in your head, Barb. And it's not even 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So here I am having an inability to let this go. Now, the thing that's beautiful about recovery is, even though I have these unrealistic expectations, and even though I'm having an extremely difficult time letting this go, I know that the key to my serenity does not lie with that other person. I know the cause of my difficulty in this situation is not the other person and her inability to provide a service the way she advertises. It's me and my expectations. And the reason that matters is because I want peace. And if my peace was only going to come from her running her business the way I want her to, then I am screwed. I'm screwed because I have no impact on how she runs her business. I really want peace. So because I know I'm the only one who can give that to me, I get to work on unhooking from my unrealistic expectations. I get to remember that when somebody shows me who they are, I should believe them. And I get to accept this is what happened. The package arrived way too late for us to have the kind of evening we expected to have. And a very important part of the package was missing, which, by the way, she didn't even tell me wasn't going to be included until the next day. I found out it's actually not coming at all this weekend. So when she told me that, she said, you have two choices. You can either get a refund or you can get something better in the future when the subcontractor returns from town. So I'm really disappointed. And by the way, I still ended up having a wonderful time with my sweetheart. Now, don't get me wrong. Thoughts about this did plague me, but I had lots of time in between it plaguing me where I was able to be in the moment and enjoy myself. And I can tell you right now that if this had happened before recovery, it would have ruined everything for me, for him, and for us. It would have ruined the entire weekend because I would have let it. I would have blamed her and felt completely justified in blaming her. So at least it didn't ruin everything. And now, because of recovery, I have tools for letting things go and for unhooking from my expectations after the fact. Just knowing that those are options are the main tools I need. So, dear listener, what are you having trouble letting go of? What do you have unrealistic expectations about? I would love to hear about them. Either DM me on Instagram or email me at barb@higherpowercc.com. I was recently reminded by a friend that when I first started recovery, I didn't feel lovable. I almost can't believe that I used to feel that way and that I kind of forgot something so profound because I truly love myself now. And I want that for everybody. If you don't love yourself, there's literally nothing that can make up for that. I created something exclusively for my private clients since many of them don't love themselves. And I've now opened up my private vault to share it with up to 10 people individually. It's called the Self-Love Sprint. You'll grow to love yourself and truly feel worthy so you can stop saying yes when you really want to say no, stop neglecting yourself and putting everyone else first. Stop saying all kinds of nasty shit to yourself. That is not what people who love themselves and feel deserving do. You'll stop being afraid that others will think that you're selfish for taking time to care for yourself. This is also for you if you don't really know who you are because you've always been such a fucking chameleon. Go to higherpowercc.com/love sprint. Remember, I'm only offering 10 of these, so don't wait. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did or you wouldn't still be listening, then you're gonna love the other things I have to offer. If you'd love pre-release podcast scripts and episodes before anyone else gets them, or if you'd love access to content from my private vault that I developed exclusively for my private clients, which is like having a work session with me without me actually being there, go to patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. There are 3 tiers ranging from as low as $4 up to $24 a month. You'll also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has content very similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. Please like and subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. I'd also love it if you'd leave a review, which you can do either in the show notes or on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other people find my podcast so they can get the benefits you've gotten from listening. If someone came to mind when you listened to this particular episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run group and private coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can hop onto my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I would love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope. and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.